So, last time I talked about the Milgram experiment and kind of highlighted that even under extreme circumstances, people still differ. And I promised you a definition of personality. So, here is the official personality um, definition, or at least a couple of them. And they all capture kind of the key pieces. Uh, this one's from the beginning of the book. This initial guy right here. An individual's characteristic patterns of thoughts, emotion, uh, and behavior together with the psychological mechanisms, hidden or not, behind those patterns. And kind of the briefer, more succinct version is an individual's unique and relatively consistent patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving. Often these are focused on the differences between people, hence individual differences. The key kind of different aspects of this definition are that like characteristic doesn't have to mean the same thing in all situations and with all people. Just it describes general tendencies. Just like Tuki has a general tendency to be in frame. Because that is one of his general kind of behaviors. Yeah. I've clearly just given up on keeping him out of frame. But I tend to like the second definition a bit more because it emphasizes that personality is what makes people kind of unique. It's what, people do that are different. And you only have to be relatively consistent. It's not like an absolute. It's you do this more often than other people. But any of these kind of captures the spirit of these. Now, on the next slide, I've got some semantics. The next slide. Okay, so all personality traits are individual differences, but not all individual differences are personality. Non-personality individual differences include like values, intelligence, cognitive ability. We'll talk a bit about intelligence. I do some research on intelligence because it's got really nice psychometric measurement properties and it predicts lots of stuff. But also it includes vocational interests. So the fact that I am a psychology professor and not a historian or a cat herder. Oh, we've lost the. He's moved on. We'll see how long that lasts. But just kind of vocational interests, like working with people versus things, stuff like that. And depending on how broad your definition is, this can include skills like the long jump or the force. And the really broadest definition that I think is too broad, as you can see in my cutesy little parenthetical, includes everything that people vary on, including like ear wiggling. I tend to narrow this down, and that's why I've included the caveat of like psychological mechanisms. So there's some gray area here. This class will primarily be focused on personality. I'll bring in intelligence and cognitive ability. On occasion, I'll make lame Star Wars references. For the most part, we're going to focus on personality, which is kind of characteristics, thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So How Funder describes this as it's essentially mission impossible to account for everything at the same time. The idea that you explain the whole person in their daily environment. You just explain it all. Now, it's a wonderful goal, but as Funder put it, it's a bit impossible. And let's see if this works. Okay. I spent way too much time animating this GIF. So we're gonna watch it. It's from the first Mission Impossible movie. Yeah. I'm sorry. I have to entertain myself because I'm trapped in my apartment with a green screen and cats. So anyway, many claim, including David Funder, that it's mission impossible to explain everything at once. It's a great idea, but think of an important behavior that you performed recently and all of the reasons behind that behavior. All of them. Political scientists struggle with this all the time because they're just trying to explain one thing, like, well, a handful of things like, did you vote? And who did you vote for? Those two individual behaviors, like the act of voting and the act of deciding who to vote for, is an entire field. I'm working on a project looking at why people get vaccinated and what are some of the causal influences of that. And while the models I've been working on with a couple of undergraduates work really well for general tendencies, they're not so hot at predicting whether you get vaccinated in any given year. Overall behavior, kind of a general tendency versus specific act. Like for vaccination, is it convenient? Does your insurance cover it? Does it fit in your schedule? Is the line long? Do you have other stuff to do? And then there's personality characteristics on top of that, economic access. There's a ton of stuff. So I encourage you to think about any one of your random behaviors. Even like when you watch this video, think about why it was at this time and not 10 minutes before. Or why are you not doing it tomorrow? There's just so many reasons. Tons. It's mission impossible, and most psychologists have accepted that we can try and make one big theory, but in reality, we have to narrow our focus. And in the next slides, I'll talk about different ways we narrow our focus. Or that, like, characteristic, it doesn't mean that, like, you have to behave that way all the time. It's just kind of more like, what I mean is that